Boy, I'm glad we're not live.
Yeah.
You're listening to Squatch Talks Podcast. Real stories and real encounters told by real researchers. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Welcome back to Squatch Talks Podcast.
How's everybody doing tonight?
Woo! Excited. Got a great guest coming on. But Nathan and I just wanted to take a moment to thank all of you for your continued support and for sharing and liking and commenting and, of course, subscribing.
Yes, they always do that.
And our friends at Yeti Bars, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm almost done with my first Squatch Talks Podcast Yeti Bar. It's getting thin. But I'm still enjoying it. So it's going to be time to crack open another one. I don't know which one I like better, the Dixie Cryptid or the Squatch Talks. I don't know. I'm a little biased, of course.
Yeah, of course.
And as I just mentioned to Nathan, I'm drinking an espresso cream Black Rifle Coffee Company beverage, but I'm going to have to probably put them down for a while if I want to stay in my same size pants for the expedition coming up in June.
Hey, you don't want to have to buy new wardrobe.
No. Well, I purposely buy my camo pants a little larger so that you can layer up with them. You know what I mean? So I should be okay. But yeah,
I still have fat pants from when I was 350. So I just keep them just to remember how fat I really was.
Just to reminisce. I was thinking that when I saw you come on, then I was going to see less of you, but you kept the beard, I see.
Yeah, why did I say I was going to shave?
Well, you said it. You didn't know how long you'd be able to keep it, and today was a hot one, so I wasn't sure how you made out.
The hair is going to go before the beard.
Well, that's probably true. But I want to let people know also to go to check out our merch page on our spring store, right? I think it was used to be called
I was
Teespring.
froze.
You were froze again. I don't know.
I was
froze. I'm thinking it's my new Xfinity. I got rid of Verizon and I have Xfinity now. So I'm not sure I'm liking it yet.
Mine said that I was slow.
My
internet connection is bad.
I'm supposed to have more than I did for less money, no contract. So we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we're anticipating a guest joining us. This has been quite the fiasco to try to get together with this guy. But they say three's a charm, right, Nate?
That's right.
So fingers crossed. And he's got some stories that he's going to share with us.
That's what we want.
That's what we're here for. We want more stories. So if you got some stories, where can they submit them to? Where do they contact us?
Squatch Talks Podcast at gmail.com and the nasbro.net. My computer's going crazy here. I'm getting all kinds of dings in my ears. Stupid
nasbro.net. And speaking of nasbro.net.
No, nasbro.net. I said that wrong.
Yeah, nasbro.net. Boom. I gotta always remember where to put the cue cards and stuff. My dear friend, our friend Art, who has been dealing with some health issues. I actually started a GoFundMe page today for Art. And I did post it on our NASBRO Facebook page. Okay. And I think I did also on Squatch Talks page as well. So if anybody's out there listening that wishes to help out with the cause, we'd greatly appreciate any and all donations. Okay. Every little bit helps. I was just thinking, I was talking with Heather. I mean, if everybody on our NASBRO Facebook page simply donated $10, we'd reach the goal in no time.
Sweet.
I can't believe it. Yeah. So hey, if you're able, then please do. It's funny. I did it on I shared it with the investigators page, right? Okay. Immediately Lori reaches out to me.
Oh yeah.
I said,
can't get a nicer lady than Lori.
I said, you are a dear lady, and and I reminded her that a couple of days ago was the year anniversary of Kevin's passing, and she reminded me that her expedition at the end of this month is at a place the same location where Kevin went to his last expedition. So
Oh,
kind of touching, you know.
yeah.
But yeah, I missed that guy. We were out tooling around on Easter, Heather and I went to one of the spots. You know, which spot haven't I been with Kevin, of course? But you know, we went over to the bowl. I haven't been to the bowl in a while, and I almost made a short today of our adventure for the simple fact that as we were leaving, I was filming the road just to get some B-roll footage, you know. And I see a car up ahead, so I stopped filming. As I'm passing by, I see a naked hippie standing in the entranceway to a pumping station with his, I guess, lady friend in front of him. Okay. So I didn't get the full on view, but I simply drove past. Like, I look at Heather, I said, well, that's something you don't see every day. Oh, what I said so, and I filmed that, me saying, that's something you don't see every day. A naked hippie standing in a pump house, you know. I said, should we go back? Let's go back. So I turned around. I went all the way down to Mount Misery, though, by the time I decided to turn around. We turned around, and now she's filming out the passenger side, right? And when we got back to where they were, he was now apparently in the back seat of the vehicle, I guess getting dressed. I don't know. But it was kind of funny. So, yeah, you never know what you're going to find. You never know what you're going to find out in the Pine Barrens.
That's right.
That's just it, you know. That's what we're here for, the stories. And we're sure as hell aren't getting any more at this point. But we will soon
hopefully
enough.
In May I can drum up something, maybe.
Yeah.
At least to tell you that nothing happened or whatever.
And then June also, you know what I mean? So hey, listen, if you're out there and you're interested in sharing your stories with us, remember Squatch Talks Podcast at Gmail, or you can submit it at nasbro.net. We've got a guest joining us, though. You ready, Nathan?
Here he comes. Huh?
Let's admit our friend Andy. There we are. Hey.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, mate.
Perfect.
Welcome. You remember Nathan?
I do. Nathan, how you doing?
Pretty good. How you doing?
Good. Thank you.
Good.
Working late, I see.
Yeah, I just got done with a meeting. We had our accessibility meeting. The Pinelands is for everyone. So we're going to be doing eco tours with adventures. So right now we're trialing a bunch of different wheelchairs out on certain ADA trails around the parks. So there's our disabilities advocate Sean is very much heading up like the old ADA piece for the parks. So part of that is doing an evening, like a couple of times, every month, like a couple of blogs and doing like a podcast kind of thing too, like a Zoom meeting with interested parties. So
nice.
Me doing the tours, I better join in on those so I know what's going on.
It's nice to know where you're headed.
Exactly.
And when is that set to begin?
Well, right now we've actually done what we're doing right now is we're trialing wheelchairs. So everybody's got different disabilities. So we have 5 different types of wheelchairs. And the goal is, once we've done our evaluation, we're partnering with Kingsway School over in Mount Laurel. They've been around for about 50 years. They're a school for kids with disabilities. So they take, I should say kids, everybody, I think up to, around 30, 35 years old. So, so right now we're partnering with those to try out all of these wheelchairs and fill out all of our evaluations to find out what works and what doesn't, either the course content or the actual chair, and we were over at Sign Lake just last, a couple of weeks ago to go on their ADA trail. So what do you know? I didn't even realize their ADA trail starts about 100 yards in the forest. So even to get to the trail, you can't get to it because there's a curb, So it's
not very
kind of
wheelchair accessible
as you go. So it was nice because Chris, the superintendent for Wharton, actually was on that hike. and it gave him, you know, a unique understanding of what we're looking at and what we need to do to truly make it accessible. The trail itself was great, but getting to the trail was the difficult thing. So we're working on that, and Chris has got some good ideas, and I think, you know, at some point in the future, you know, we'll be ironing the kinks out to allow a bit more accessibility for everybody.
Why don't you tell us a little bit more about what you do?
Well, I run Pinelands Adventures. We're part of Pinelands Preservation Alliance. So you know, we've got a non-profit organization, which is our parent, you know, really designed to basically help control really what goes on and what doesn't go on in the Pine Barrens. You know, we work a lot with state and local authorities to enable that. So the Pinelands Preservation Alliance works with the you know, the State Forest Commission and the DEP to make sure things are legit and on the up and up. So we do our best to do that. And then as Adventures goes, which is what I head up, we're really the liaison between people learning about the Pine Barrens and you know, becoming stewards, as well as, you know, as well as working with the PPA to, you know, to generate and raise money. So it's all very well and good, you know, folks coming out and having a nice experience and wanting to do something for the Pine Barrens, but we're the facilitators in a way, because without that experience and without that education, you might not likely to, you know, maybe become a steward or join as a member or do something good for the environment. So, you know, we're the transitional folks. You know, in order to get, you know, passionate about what you do, best thing to do is jump in one of our boats and go down the Mullica River, you know, and give those people that experience about getting back to nature. And then hopefully you become a steward of this wonderful area we call the Pine Barrens. And I'm sure Bigfoot would be very happy about that too.
Oh, I believe so. I believe so. Now, if we become members, can we get like a badge to flash at night when we're out there that the police will let us alone? Like, we're out here for the DEP type thing, making sure nobody's doing anything stupid.
Well, if you find one of those, let me know, because I've been out by the police.
No, you don't get a badge, Nathan, but you do get a nifty recyclable pencil.
Oh, there you go.
I do have a recyclable writing utensil that I got from Allison.
I just thought maybe that way we could get out of some trouble if we get caught somewhere we're not supposed to be.
And as a member, I do get my newsletter mailed every month.
Very good, very good.
Very good, yes.
Yeah.
I do get that.
Thank you.
We could probably give you guys some stickers to put on your cars that say Adventures.
I was looking for the sticker
You
that
know?
I got also, but I couldn't locate it in time when we went on air. So
there you go.
We can definitely source some stickers out for the vehicle, so that way, you know, if they do see a vehicle, they're more than likely to think it's one of our programs.
I would like a couple, please. I have a
We can sort those out,
command.
Eric, I'm sure.
But and again, what you were discussing though with the accessibility, I do see it discussed here on this page as a person accessing the park in their dune buggy wheelchair. Okay, the one that I was going to show everybody for some reason won't open up on my screen due to memory issues. And I thought it was just my mother who was having problems with that, but apparently I didn't take my Prevagen today.
And you just can't remember how to do it.
I don't know if I can do it with the other program, so I'm going to try to share the screen and see what happens. But you would like this definitely, so I'm going to try an attempt at this because it's on my other. I don't know how to describe that, but it probably won't work. So I'm going to bring this up again, and nope, it's not allowing me to do it, unfortunately.
No, but that wheelchair right there is pretty cool.
Did you see the wheelchair? Can you see this?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an all-terrain wheelchair.
That's an all-terrain wheelchair. Yeah. So I was trying to enlarge that photo. Unfortunately, it wasn't working, but you get the drift.
Yeah. We've actually looked at those chairs, and this a lot of the national park systems out west will actually run those chairs.
Yeah.
And they're looking. I have a like different types here, and
That looks like
I
a
can
gas
show you
powered.
right now. So forgive my drawing, but there's the track. Oh, there's the
There you
track
go.
chair,
Mhm.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
and they're about 13 to 18,000, depending on
Oh yeah.
the access features that you might upgrade
Cup
it.
holders are extra.
The missile launchers and
Yeah, right.
The cup holder for our Black Rifle
Yeah,
coffee.
most
company.
important is the beer holder. I don't think there's one on
Yeah.
there.
you need to. I got the line in. I can't even say it.
Yeah,
Summer Shandy.
I just got. I'm unfortunately very slack tonight.
Sorry, Andy. You know, this is
It's all right, mate.
this is taking us some getting to make it all come together. You know,
Yeah,
I
it's
know.
certainly the third time's the charm, right?
Absolutely. So we're hoping that, you know, the gods are with us tonight, because
Mhm.
hopefully everything is good on your end, and my new internet and Nathan's, you know, shoddy internet. I don't know who's, you know.
Yeah, right. Well, I'm on the Adventures internet, so anything can happen here.
There you go. It's always an adventure.
It's always,
You know?
yes. Anything can happen in the Pine Barrens.
Well, that's the whole thing, you know.
I was just telling Nathan about an incident on Easter Sunday that Heather and I encountered. We were tooling through behind Brendan Byrne, and on our way from Brendan Byrne, the bowl towards Mount Misery, and I'm filming, you know, the beauty of the trail, just like B-roll, and I saw a vehicle up ahead, so I stopped filming. And as I'm passing, it's a pump house off to the side, and there's a naked hippie standing in the entrance to the pump house with a young lady with him. I turned to Heather and I said, well, that's something you don't see every day.
Thank God.
Yeah, thank the Lord. Thank the Lord. That's not what you want to see every day.
Mm-mm. And this guy was like smiling from ear to ear. His hair was all wild. And
well, you know, I once ran into two naked hikers, and I was coming down Old Atsine Road. You know, and of course I'm usually with the dog, so she's usually out in front. And I could see these. It was a big long straight to the four-way, and I could see these guys for about 300 or 400 yards. And as I'm getting closer, I'm thinking, they've got no clothes on. So, you know, it's like a slow crash. You're like walking towards them, and you can't really veer off because I wasn't going in the woods. So I'm walking down the road, and they're getting closer and closer, and I'm like, I had to put Willow on the leash. You know, I'm like, Willow, they are not toys. Leave them alone. You know, and as I got closer, I said hello, and they were both German. What do you know? So that was it. So that was quite entertaining. But it's like, where do you look? And I've been looking at you now for like 5 minutes as I'm walking down the road. You know, I look at the sand, or I look at the floor. I'm like, where am I looking here?
That's crazy.
Auf Wiedersehen. Hey.
Yeah.
The Gates. But no, that's
Wow.
you know, you've told me that story, so I enjoyed hearing it again. But
Yeah, it's you never know what you find.
Yeah.
You know. So the other thing I got to do is my mum actually reminded me tonight, because I was talking to my mum around 5 o'clock before she went to bed over in the UK, and you know, she said, "When's that BBC book
Episode
coming
gonna
out?
air."
The audio book?" And I said, "That is a good question. I haven't heard anything from the BBC, so I'm going to be emailing them tomorrow and to see if we can get a copy of either the transcript or the recording of our night out at Ong's Hat."
Absolutely, that'd be fun.
You know, which would be kind of fun.
They probably edited me out, so don't worry.
Well, I mean, I think part of the Audible books process there is there's like, I guess there's like a bunch of them in sequence, and
Yeah,
I don't know how much of us they put in it. I don't know, but it would be kind of cool to see if we actually made it on tape.
I did look it up, you know, not long afterwards, and see if there was anything happening. But I found another series that I guess that BBC had produced in regards to it, and they had, you know, stories about the author of the book and everything. And yeah, I haven't looked lately though.
Yeah, I'll check with Emma. She was the producer.
Yeah,
and she
Mark.
actually, it's funny. She actually doesn't live far from where I've lived in the UK, so it's kind of, she's only 10 minutes down the road. So in
Cool.
a place called Leek Wootton.
Wow,
So
nice.
I'll actually email her and find out if it's available. because I know it said Australian market, but you know, we should be able to pick up something online, right? In this
You would
day and
think.
age.
And
You
if
know?
not, I have relatives on down under, I should say.
Yeah,
you
right.
know?
Give them a call.
I can check with them, absolutely.
Check them. Check with them.
That was fun though. We had a good time and froze our asses off a little bit.
Yeah, it was. It was good.
You and Rob.
The guys came by remembering the 6-wheel drive amphibious vehicle.
There you go. That's what you need for
So that was kind of
transporting.
entertaining. You know, there was a bit of piney, you know, because we were talking
Ingenuity.
about I think, pinies at one point.
Yeah.
And what do you know? An old amphibious vehicle comes trundling by.
Those things are great. I had one of them when I was growing up. Those things are fun as hell.
Oh, it looked it, didn't it?
Yeah.
It reminded me of a scene from like that Mountain Monsters show, you know what I mean? That's what I'd expect them to be tooling around in.
Yeah, right.
With their shotguns, you know?
Yeah.
But I've been out a number of times since we've seen each other, Andy, at a location that you're familiar with, of course, where you and Willow tend to spend some time. And we've been doing some research in that area. My friend Jacob and I,
Yep.
You met Jacob and his lovely fiance at the
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Night hike. Okay. So he and I actually set to go out tomorrow night again,
Okay.
and we're going to be meeting out there and probably heading a little further southwest towards an
Okay.
area that there was a individual discovered not long ago by somebody who was out and about, right? And they called the local authorities.
Yeah.
And he had been missing for quite some time, right? I think.
Yeah,
almost a
they
year.
had, and you know, it's funny. I was actually down there a couple of weeks ago. I went to walk the dog, and you know, I've got my routes. I've got a whole bunch of routes in my phone. You know, so I can, if I, you know, I store my routes so I can say, oh, I'm going to do, you know, that hike or that route. So I actually went down that way, you know, and it was, you know, it was a really quiet, weird night. It was very, very quiet, and there was no wind. And I got the dog out. The dog jumps out the back of the truck as she usually does, has a sniff around. You know, we start off. I got 100 yards. You know, then I turn around. I'm like, Willow's behind me, looking at me as if to say, "Well, where are you going?" And I'm like, "Come on." You know, normally she's off ahead, and I'm usually following her. But she was like, "No, I'm not going down there." She actually ran back to the car and waited behind it. And I opened the back door up, and she hopped in. She's like, "I ain't having this." So we never got to walk down there. So I don't know what that was all about. But for some reason, you know, she got out, sniffed the air, and thought, "I'm not doing this. I'm going back to the truck."
And this
Holy
was
crap.
when? Not long ago?
This was the other week, like last week.
Yeah.
I can't remember what day it was. It was after work from here, so I picked the dog up, and then, you know, I'm close, so I just head down into the forest. So
Wow.
it may have been like Wednesday last week, perhaps.
Okay, because the Thursday before last week, so 2 Thursdays ago,
Okay.
we were out there until 1:30 in the morning. Okay.
Right.
I'm not sure when you were there, but it was pretty
Yeah,
cold
mine
that
was. Yeah, mine was about. I mean, it was dark. It was about 8 o'clock, but it wasn't too late.
night. Yeah. Wow, I'm
So-
surprised. She's usually really gung ho to go, you know, trudging along with
Oh,
you.
she is. I mean, you know, at 10 years old, she's like a 10-year-old puppy. She loves to run around all over the place. I mean, she's got a ton of energy still for her age, and really not a lot. I mean, in reality, I don't think there's really anything that bothers her. You know, she's not bothered with the smell of coyotes or anything, and you know, and generally she's absolutely fine. You know, people.
Wow.
You know, I do have to leash her when I meet people because she gets a bit nuts
Yeah.
until she settles down, and then I let her off, and she's usually okay. But that episode, you know, there was something there that she didn't like, and actually she did it a couple of times to Kathy when I was in England. Kathy took her for a walk. It wasn't over this area. It was actually it was over on this side of the other side of 206. You know, if you go down not Dave's Road, but the one up here that goes over the railway track. So Kathy took her down there. And there was a couple of times where, you know, Kathy took her out and she said, yeah, she was acting strange. And she came back to she didn't want to go. She came back to the truck and sat behind it like, I'm not having anything to do with this. So she does that. And she's kind of my gauge. She usually heads up in front of me. And she's my early warning system for what's coming down the trail.
There you go.
Well, it's
You know?
funny because Jacob mentioned to me he was out with his friend Cooper, who they were the two that were with one another when they had that incident back in 2018 that I told you
Right.
about.
Yeah.
And they were out across 206, just north of Dave's Road.
Yep.
And again, had something
Yeah.
they experienced. It's like they're like,
Yeah.
I don't know what they're magnets to. I don't know if it's Bigfoot or
Yeah.
Jersey Devil, who knows, right? But yeah, once again, he tells me that they had an experience. Okay. So this makes like 3 or 4 times now that he's been out there and had something happen. And I think I mentioned to you that he was solo hiking one morning at you call it the ford.
Yeah, it used to be an old. If you look at the old maps, there was an old fort. Yeah, there was an old sawmill there years ago. Yeah,
yeah. Okay.
So right there is where I had my bizarre. All I can say is my bizarre chatter episode.
You want to tell us about that episode?
Yeah, sure, I can talk about that. And it's funny because when I got home, I told Kathy about it. She looked at me like I had 2 heads. When you're having the experience, you don't think about it as a Bigfoot experience. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I can honestly believe that some people that have certainly a one-on-one interaction with Bigfoot it's one of those things I believe that you're not really looking for. It happens, and then you think, oh my God. It's kind of like seeing naked grandma, right? You really didn't want to have to see that, and now you realize it's real. So
with a naked hippie.
Yeah, right. So mine was kind of an interesting situation. I was down at the ford. I'd done a big loop of a hike with the dog, and I was actually coming back to where I'd parked, and that brought me down that trail, that big whoopee trail that goes along the Mullica River there. Mm-hmm. And I stopped at the ford, and I usually sit down on the tree root right to the side of the ford, kind of facing the forest a little bit. And the dog I usually tell her to go and get a drink, and she does. So she heads off into the water, and she's having a drink. And next thing you know, her nose is in the air, and this is just after sunset, so there's still light, but the sun's gone down. And so she's having a drink of water in the river, and next thing you know, I'm watching her. I'm just very quiet watching the dog. Nose goes in the air, and hackles go up, and she has this big puffy one. She's got a big long thin tail, and she has this massive ball of a hackle that comes up in her tail. It looks like she's been stung by a bee or something. So hackles up, but a tail between her legs, and she comes straight out of the water, comes over to me, and is leaning on my legs, and I'm sitting there, and I start petting her, saying, all right, and I'm looking around thinking maybe there's some thunder or lightning, because she is a bit subjective to that these days at her age. And then I hear voices. So I'm thinking, it's a pair of hikers, because I can hear 2 voices. So I'm rummaging around. I take my backpack off. I'm rummaging around in my bag to find a leash. And so I get her on the leash, and I'm listening to the voices. There's a trail that comes down behind that river, and it turns into the loop there that comes over the ford, where, folks tried to 4-wheel, and I think some horse riders take their horses down there. As the voices are getting closer, I'm realizing I'm listening to this, and the dog is listening, and I'm realizing I don't understand what they're saying. So I kind of chuckled, thinking we've got another pair of Germans coming down the trail. Maybe they're naked.
Yeah.
But as it got closer, they were talking, and I said to Kathy, this is how I would it. I said, they were talking gobbledygook. It was like a language I didn't understand. And it kind of made me chuckle, because I'm thinking, oh my God, we've got genuine ponies out here. Right. So anyway, as the voice is getting closer, I realized they're not coming down the trail, but they're actually cutting through the cedar swamp. So they're out of my view. And there's a lot, if you ever sit down there and you're sitting orientated the way I was, there's like an embankment, so you can't see over it. And so I'm sitting there listening to this getting louder and louder, and I'm realizing I do not know what they're saying. And the dog is kind of tucked into me, watching the direction of the talk. And I realized they're cutting through the trail up over, I think, where there's a little road that goes down there, over that road. And then they must have made their way up in the forest, because I listened to them for maybe about a minute, maybe 2 minutes. But the dog was listening for a lot longer than me. I was watching the dog, and she was clearly following their progress with her ears, and I could kind of tell the way they went. So after that passed, I was parked down by a single lane bridge. I went to go down there, and the dog would not go down there. I mean, I put the leash on her, I took the leash off, and I put the leash back on. I even tried to drag her, and she dug her heels in on. Nope. So I ended up doing a massive bypass to go all the way around those woods to get back to the car, and it took me like another hour and a half of hiking.
Wow.
So here's the weird thing. So I'm trying to think what this is, and I listened to the Sierra Sounds, and it was that. It was almost like Japanesey chatter, and I can't explain it other than And I told Eric, I said it sounded to me like it was a conversation between an adult and a kid. There was one much deeper voice, and there was one that was a lot higher voice and a little bit quieter, like they were having a dad-son discussion. And that's how it sounded to me, the way they talked. And I'm listening to this thinking, what the hell is that? and I kind of chuckled to myself, because I didn't really understand what I was listening to. But the dog was very, very upset by it, and she wouldn't go anywhere near those woods. And when I got home, I said to Kathy, I said, I just had the weirdest thing. She said, what's that? I said, well, I thought there were two hikers coming down the trail, but they were talking gobbledygook. And I couldn't understand what they said. They sounded like they were Japanese. And it was the bizarrest conversation I've ever heard in my life. But it was clearly a conversation. They would say things, and then there would be a response. And, it was almost like a little argument was going on. So,
what did it sound like? I'm really curious.
It sounded like, and then it would be like a quieter voice, like, but it was continual. And then there would be a gap in the language. Then there'd be some more, I guess, words, as you'd call them. And it went on for about a minute to about a minute and a half, I think. And then the sound, as they walked away from me, slowly petered out. And so I couldn't hear them anymore. But I'm watching the dog, and the dog is following. And the stupid thing is, I had my phone in my pocket, but it was just, I didn't even think to take it out to record or video that. It was, and because I was just amazed. I think I was stuck in the moment. And I was just watching the dog, thinking, what's going to be her reaction here? What actually is this? I don't know. So when I got home, I listened to the Sierra Sounds, and it honestly sounded like that. It was like very Japanesey, and I guess they call it kind of samurai chatter. And I'm like, that's what I heard. It was that.
And when you described it to me, when we were talking about it, and you were recanting it to me, I said to you, dude, you heard samurai chatter. I was so jealous.
And I wasn't expecting it either. And that's the whole thing. When I'm in the forest, I do a lot of miles with the dog, and Eric knows I used to work a night shift. So I used to do 12, PM to 7 PM to 7 AM. So they were 12-hour shifts, and on my days off, I would, keep the same hours, because otherwise it screws you up at work. So the dog got used to me being up in the middle of the night. So that was when we used to do a lot of our hiking. 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm in the forest. So, we got a lot of miles in there, but I've only had those 3 occurrences. Well, there are 3 occurrences, including, 2 including that one, I should say.
But before you talk about any of those, I want to just touch on the fact that Jacob was out, like I said, on a early morning hike before daybreak, and he had gotten from the 1-lane bridge up to the ford. Okay.
Yep.
And because he knows the history, he attempted to do some samurai chatter, which I have to say he does really well. And then didn't hear anything. So he took about 10, 15 steps back in the direction of the 1-lane bridge down that trail there towards the cedar forest, and he did it again, and this time something came up on him through from the cedar swamp into the water, that little canal there.
Oh, yeah, there's that little canal, yeah.
And he heard it coming and approaching him bipedally and through the water. You know how you described
splash,
one of
splash,
your
yep.
splash, splash, okay. And he's fumbling with his phone, trying to get his phone out to not only record, but get some protection. He had his flashlight. He's trying to do all this. So he did get his phone to record. And I got to hear it. And let me tell you, you can definitely hear something coming up on him. But then when he pulled out his flashlight, there was nothing there. Okay?
Bizarre, isn't it?
Yeah.
And he was freaked out, let me tell you. So the funniest thing is, though, and like he didn't want to go walking down that trail back towards the bridge. Instead, he went down the fire cut, which is right there into the woods.
Yeah, I know it. There's actually
I
a
know
motorcycle track right there too.
Exactly. And I'm saying another 20 yards down the trail, you would have had a nice big forestry road. That takes you to the intersection.
That goes down to the four. I mean, you got a big wide road to the four-way. Yeah, right,
to the four-way. No, he goes through that little narrow fire cut. I'm saying, dude, it's worse.
Just grab you at any time.
Yeah, I'm surprised he didn't end up a victim of greenbriers going down there.
Yeah. So I kind of chuckled about that, but I got him right out that night. I mean, when it happened that day, he contacted me, and I made sure I got him right back out again, because it's like falling off a horse. You want to get right back on, you know what I mean?
Yep.
But I can only imagine how terrifying it is when you're there by yourself without a headlamp on, pitch blackness, and something comes up on you like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Well, I don't have to imagine, because I've been, but never by myself necessarily.
Yeah.
You also, you and Willow have had some experiences out there. You guys were out there another time.
Yeah. When
you were taking a hike around 1:30, I guess, again in the morning, right? And you came upon some people at that
I can tell you that story. It was it's funny. I was parked down the other side of 1-lane bridge, down into that rough section over there. There used to be a big bomb hole there, and God forbid you try and took your vehicle through it, it'd swallow you. So I was parked up down there, and doing a big hike again, a big loop, and it was like around like 1:30 in the morning, getting maybe towards closer to 2 o'clock, and I'm coming down the big long straightway, Old Atsign Road, to the big four-way. And I could see as I'm getting, walking down the road, because it's early in the morning, I could see headlights of vehicles kind of tucked off. There's a kind of a cut around, so you don't go into the four-way, because it gets really deep sand in the middle there. So, if you're in a two-wheel drive vehicle, you might end up completely getting bogged in the center of that four-way. So they were off to the side, off to the right-hand side, and I could hear voices, and there was a bunch of people talking, and I saw, headlights of vehicles, and engines burbling away. So I'm thinking, I'll have a bit of fun with them. I'll nip into because I'm walking down the road, I'll nip into the forest, and I'll come up on them through the forest. So I thought, well, I'll have a bit of fun here. So I did. So, Willow's ahead of me. So we cut through the forest and come out right on them through the forest. Of course, Willow comes out first barking, scares the hell out of them. Where the hell did this dog just come from? And then I come out of the forest. That really made them jump, so scared them a bit more. So, we had a good laugh over that. And there was about 8, I don't know, maybe about 8 people there. And so we had a chat. I was there maybe half an hour talking to people, talking to them. And, we were having a laugh and a joke, and, and the kind of the conversation came up. I said, well, what are you guys doing out here? And they're all from Pennsylvania. They rough camp in the forest. So they've been rough camping. They don't officially follow the regulations. They have their own camps, but they're a good bunch of lads and lasses, and they clear up after themselves, and there's no fire issues, and they take care of their campsites. And so they were rough camping. And they told me this interesting story. So the reason they were out there was they were camping over, am I allowed to say Maple Island?
Yeah.
So they were camping out at Maple Island as they usually do, and so they're there. There's like 4 or 5 vehicles. You know, some are in tents, and there was a couple that were sleeping in the back of a pickup. It was a big Toyota Tundra with a cab on the back, and you know, it had a you know, what you call it, a rack on the top and lights. So quite nicely kitted out. So they're all, you know, they'd all camped down at Maple Island, and they all went to bed at like around midnight. And they all fell asleep. And then about maybe about 1 o'clock in the morning, they hadn't long been to sleep. There was the couple that was staying in the Toyota. You know, I think the girl's name was Jennifer. She was in the back with a boyfriend, Craig, I think. And she hears this rattling on the door, and she just assumed it was somebody wanting something out of the truck. So, you know, she leans over, flicks there's a light switch in the back of the cab that puts the lights on. So, you know, everybody's asleep, everybody's quiet. She hears a rattling on the door, like somebody trying to get in. So she thinks, oh, it's somebody wants something. So she flicks the lights on, looks through the window because she's facing the pickup, you know, hatch.
Right.
And all she said was she saw a torso from about the stomach to below the chest. And she said it was hairy, incredibly ripped, like it was a bodybuilder. Like you could tell it was a darker skin, hairy, but incredibly muscular. And she said there was a massive hand and a forearm on the knob.
Oh,
and
boy.
soon as that light came on, and she realized that wasn't a person, she screamed her head off. This thing shot off to the side. All the camp then woke up at that point. You know, I think Craig banged his head on the roof because he jumped up. And so she's freaking out. And so they all jump out of the cars. Everybody gets out of tents. What's going on? What's going on? And then she said, there's a monster or there's something in the camp. And she was terrified. So they bust down the camp, threw everything in the trucks and bailed. So they got to the 4-way. They got lost. So this is where the 4-way. So they drove through the woods to get out of there and got lost at the intersection. They didn't know where they were going. And then I came upon them. Scared them even. So can you imagine that? That scared them even more. So I came upon them, and that's, you know, that's when I met them, and they, you know, they told me this story, and you know, they were explaining this to me, and you know, described it. So you know, I'm standing next to this Tundra, and I mean, you've got a Tundra, so you know. So imagine a Tundra that's lifted and got some bigger tires on, and a cab. You know, the top of the cab door, you know, the tailgate's probably about my chest high. So the cab on top of it is probably close to 7 feet, I would say. So to see a torso of not even the top of this thing. She didn't see the head. It was under the chest. It was just literally the stomach area.
That thing had to be 9
must have been
foot
massive.
tall.
Yeah,
9,
I mean,
10
she
foot
said
tall,
it filled up the entire window, and it wasn't a bear. That's what she said. And this thing took off super quick. And you know, that is explaining this to me. And then I realized I parked my car down there, so I got to walk down there with the dog. I'm like, oh, thanks for telling me this.
But you didn't hear anything on your return trip. It was uneventful.
On my return trip, and I was thinking the dog's, you know, probably going to flip out. But you know, this was actually my first experience of actually, and this was about 4 years ago now. In fact, this was kind of my first experience about weird thing, like you know, you hear all the tales about the Jersey Devil and you know the family leads and all this other stuff, but you never really think about Bigfoot and the Pine Barrens. And that's, you know, this was my first inkling as to think, wow, this is a bit weird. And I still keep in touch with that group. Rob's the guy that kind of is the lead that contacts me, and he usually phones me up in the summer and says, Andy, I'm stuck. You know, are you coming down this way? I'll pull you. I need to pull out. But they no longer camp at Maple Island because it freaked them out so badly they don't go anywhere near it anymore. And
so
to this day, they
can't
still
go
come
through
over.
the woods anywhere else, or what?
Yeah, they camp elsewhere, but they keep away from that Maple Island area for sure. They camp over by Lower Forge, you know, and the Mullica campgrounds down that way. So way further, I should say, like southeast from here.
Right.
So they don't go anywhere near.
And that was during the warm.
No.
That was during the warmer weather. right?
Yeah, that was during the warmer weather, and it was right around like the COVID time.
So
Just
would you
before
say
COVID, in
August,
fact, I guess.
September? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was about the end of the summer, like September time.
Okay.
You know, and they it just having a nice night. They went to bed. They had something to eat, and everybody, they usually go to bed fairly early and wake up early in the morning to drive to places. So they do a little bit of exploring themselves. So they go to bed early, and this shook them completely up. This was a new one for them.
I bet. Well, if you ever speak to, Jennifer or Craig and they want to like tell or get their story published, you know what I mean? We're always happy to take their report. So they're welcome
sure.
to reach out to me and we can make that happen. Because that way we could get some more specific details from her and included in our database, you know what I mean? But
Yep.
So that was roughly 4 years ago around.
Yeah, that was actually my
COVID.
first bizarre experience of things that go bump in the night, I guess.
And the samurai chatter though was in April. Am I correct?
Yeah, that was
April?
actually recently. That was like within, what are we now? We're in 2023, right? So this would have been like the end of last year. So this was fairly recent.
So it was year ago, April.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah. So, and that's why, because of you telling me about that, that's why we've been focusing a little bit of our research now in that area.
Yeah.
And so tomorrow night, actually, like I said, well, when this airs, of course, it'll be the other night. Yeah. Okay. Yep. But we are planning to go down to Maple Island this time.
Well,
so if
good luck.
If this doesn't air on Saturday, we'll know what happened.
Yeah,
right.
Come find me.
Come find me. Yes.
Yeah. Put an SOS out.
But that is the plan. We're working up the nerve to work our way down that trail towards Maple Island. And we actually were out, like I said, a couple of weeks ago at the One Lane Bridge. We set up a little base camp, and we had some interesting vocalizations. First a barred owl, then a great horned owl. I mean, very, very interesting. And then some canine type sounds. Later on, though, I did ask Jacob to do some samurai chatter, and we had done a couple of wood knocks that sounded great. And I recorded something which I still have yet to review, but I'm going to go do that. And if there's anything good on it, I'll try to include some audio.
Yeah, let me know. Yep.
But I'll tell you, we had something interesting respond. Yeah. But kind of far off in that direction. So that's why we're saying, I think we need to head that way,
Yeah, for sure.
For sure.
And it's all swamp from that point down, from the Mullica all the way down. So, I mean.
Well, I think generally, when you look at the areas, I think they stick to certainly the wet swamp bog areas for sure.
Mm-hmm. Oh, no doubt.
And I think, my experiences, I mean, I've been all over the place I've been in the Pine Barrens now 19 years. So I've walked miles and miles through the Pine Barrens, but, I've only had, the experience with this group that they told me about, and then, 2 more experiences in all the mileage and the distance that I do. It's kind of a rare phenomenon. I'm not looking for it. It just kind of, when you're quiet and you're paying attention and everything's just quiet around you and you just sit there and listen, you can, things happen and you can hear and see a lot more than you would if you're driving down the road, or, if you're just sitting in a deer stand for a couple of nights a week. You do the mileage, keep quiet and just enjoy the environment. You tend to see some interesting things,
I was saying to Nathan before we started, he was going out camping in May, and I said, somebody was joking about looking for Bigfoot. I said, we don't go finding Bigfoot. Bigfoot finds you.
Finds you.
You just hope to be in the way. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're going to be in the right place, though, going down towards Maple Island.
So can you tell us the story, though, about the gentleman who went missing? There was some recent, right? There was a recent report.
Yeah, there was.
I know we've talked about some other.
I don't know a lot of details, but from what I gather, the guy went missing, and I forget when it was. I think he was missing
January,
for
I think,
6
of
or
last
7
year.
months.
It was January. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he went missing, and they found his car down, I guess, one of the roads. Maybe he drove down under the power lines and ended up down in the thicket down there. And then they found, I'm not sure who found it. I think it was a hunter, found, human remains. And of course he called up the park police and then the state police, and, the whole thing, got investigated. And from what I gather, from what I heard from the park police, it was an unusual scene. That's all they would say. It didn't look normal with, if animals were scattering bones around. So they didn't say anything else, but I guess I took that as being something was unusual with the site. Yeah. It didn't seem right. That's what they told me.
And one of my customers actually knows and spoke with the mayor. I believe it was the mayor of Atco, which is the town this occurred in.
Yeah.
And this individual had a Bigfoot sighting.
Interesting.
But will not come out and speak publicly about it. So I'm hoping that maybe at some point we can, have a conversation. But I am perfectly, sure that this was told to me by one of my customers. And I myself, with Art and Heather, went and did a follow-up in 2017 or 18 at a home of a mother and her daughter who was having activity, and they had a road crossing right in front of their house. Right. I mean, and their house borders Wharton. Literally,
they're in Atco, right?
Yeah, and they walked right across the street and down their property line, alongside of their detached garage, right into the woods. Okay,
right.
So I know that there is a history in this region. Okay, so who knows? We we might get lucky tomorrow night and hopefully make it back out alive.
Right. It's always a good goal.
Take some pizza with you. I hear they like pizza.
Oh, sure. Who doesn't? With bacon.
Yeah, right.
Right? I mean, they can get
just drop the pizza and run.
Bacon and black olives, right? But we've had some strange other what we would call 411 missing 411 type stories recently in the Pine Barrens. There was a hunter who went missing back by Warren Grove. His Jack Russell dog was left in the car while he went to check his deer stand, right?
Yeah.
Dog was out for a few days by itself. And luckily the window was cracked and the rain was able to, come into the car and it managed to get some water that way.
Some water.
But they never found his remains.
Yeah.
And then there was another young man who went missing out by Whitesbog. And all they found of his was his backpack, which had all his stuff in there, including a laptop. So it doesn't look like it was robbery or foul play.
Unusual circumstances,
Exactly. And most recently, though, a couple in Warren Grove again went missing.
I remember reading about that.
And you and I had talked about this, yes.
Yep.
And there was some really strange events surrounding that as well with the whole, they were found in a thicket. And this was an area that was already searched previously.
Yeah, the search teams had already been through that entire area
a
couple of times. Yeah.
That's usually the way it works,
And they were in this thicket, huddled together, holding one another, and their ATV, right, their quad was like within 15, 20 feet.
I mean, it was like easily reachable
and near where they lived.
I think didn't they say it was like 200 yards from where they lived?
I think it was even less than that.
Was it less than that? Yeah, I was going to say
believe
it wasn't a big distance, and that's the bizarrest thing, that they went missing. The entire area got searched by search and rescue with dogs multiple times, and then suddenly they're found huddled together in a thicket not far from their house and their ATV.
That's just mind-blowing. Yeah, I mean, that doesn't make sense, but I don't know. So that's not the area that I do my research, of course. We're out, hopefully learning more about the elusive Sasquatch, but you got to wonder what the heck else is going on out there, I know right now we're dealing with a pretty nasty wildfire that's burning over in Manchester.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah, 2,500 acres already so far have been burned, and people were evacuated over by 539. So okay. Which is not far from where I was out on Sunday with Heather,
Yeah. Well, it was 80. I think it was like 85 degrees today and very low humidity.
Very
Same
low.
conditions and a little bit of breeze is what
And the
gave
wind.
us that.
The
Yeah,
wind,
and that's
10
what
to
gave
20
us
miles
the
an
fire
hour.
last
Oh,
year.
yeah, man. So yeah, that's, on one hand, wildfires are good for the environment because it does encourage new growth, especially of the scrub pines and the pitch pines and all that. But on the other hand, it can destroy a lot of stuff as well in the process. So,
Yeah.
but hey, I don't know. That's that's quite some events you've had already.
Yeah.
I meant to go into this in the beginning. I do apologize, but I wanted to mention again, Andy told us a little bit about what he does with Pinelands Adventures. And as I mentioned, I ran into Allison at the booth at Lines on the Pines. Okay.
Yeah, she was there the day after the Stockton short course.
Exactly. And so I did get my pen and my sticker from her. She was very, very nice to provide me with that. I told her I was a member now. So
Excellent.
I was hoping, of course, to run into you there, but I know you had other plans. But
I was actually I'd planned to do the short course, so I needed to brush up on my
Sure.
Pinelands knowledge.
Well, and it's funny too, because like I said to you, about I guess it was 4 years previously at the Lines on the Pines, I had spoken with the former director. Okay.
Probably Rob Ferber.
Probably. And I had said to him, hey, have you ever considered doing like a cryptid Bigfoot night hike? I know you do the Jersey Devil. How about Bigfoot? And he kind of laughed me off,
Yeah.
And then it was funny because you actually had reached out to me and was like, hey, want to do a cryptid Bigfoot night hike?
Yeah, exactly.
So a lot can change, and we're going to be doing more of those eventually, right? We're talking about having another one coming up.
That's the goal. The other thing too is I want to maybe start some sort of classroom momentum going on, and
sure,
and maybe
and
I'm thinking, and maybe, I mean, whether or not it's cryptid or whether or not it's more paranormally activity, but just the way you assemble a group. Yeah, exactly. I think the skills would overlap, and maybe doing some courses on how you do an investigation, whether or not it's Bigfoot, paranormal, or something else you'd like to investigate.
Right.
Fans and viewers will have to tune into last week's episode. Then I'll put a cue card up in the corner here, right over there. I'll put a cue card for last week's episode because Nathan and I got into a pretty deep discussion about woo, as we formerly called it. Right, right, Nathan?
That's right. No matter what you're investigating, it's all paranormal. So, everything overlaps. It's crazy. When we were down, when I met you the first time, we even saw UFOs that night. So,
yeah, I remember they were on the FLIR.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
but I recorded, I did a little bit of a recording the other night with the dog. Well, the other night. Last week, I was actually out with the dog and we were walking down near Batstow, walking back up towards Quaker Bridge. And I was walking down the trail just talking and videoing, and I was talking about the dog's headlight that she wears at night. It's I think I gave one away as a gift.
You did, as a prize.
Yeah, it was that same brand of light, that Petzl Actic, which I've modified to go on her collar. So I was kind of explaining, because I was going to post it on YouTube, how I made the light, and, you wear it upside down on the dog and it's epoxied and so forth and so forth. But I'm walking down the trail and I'm having a kind of a Bigfooty discussion, about people that say, oh, I never see anything. I'm always out in the woods. And I just mentioned that I'd been on this trail for over 2 hours. It's 9 o'clock at night and I'd not seen one car or one person, and I'm out there by myself with the dog in the dark, and it started to get really foggy. And I just mentioned to the camera, I said, I'm out here by myself. There's nobody out here with me. And, I carried on. I think it was like 20 minutes of recording I did. Well, I was listening at home to the recording, and 16 minutes in, like 16 minutes 38, I'm listening on my headphones. And where I say, and I'm alone on the trail, I haven't seen anybody in over 2 hours. There is clearly a voice, and it's not mine. And it says something like, and it sounds like this. It's like, I'm with you. And it's like, I'm with you.
Wow.
And I'm like,
and then it says,
what the hell is that? So, and here's the funny thing. So here's the classic. So the dog during this time was way ahead of me. and she kept looking back and dazzling me with her headlight. Well, I lost my night vision, you know, and it's almost like I'm not going back down there with him because there's somebody else walking alongside.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'd
That's
like
freaky.
to hear that. I'd like to hear
But
that.
yeah, it's like 3 or 4 words, and it's deep and kind of whispery, like I'm with you. You know,
Well,
when
you
I
can
sound by
certainly-
myself, it's the
you can
strangest
save
thing.
that. You can save that and send it to me, and I can clip that
Well, I
audio.
think, yeah, I don't have the technology to focus in on the sound, so I'll send that recording to you to see whether you can figure out what
Yeah.
it's saying.
Oh, I can definitely clip it
You know?
and send it back to you a little amplified. And in fact, we have a guy, really gifted individual, Monongahela, who I recently sent some audio recordings from another group up in the Appalachians. Okay, the Catskills, actually, Appalachian Research Collective. Thank you. It came to me.
You need that other beer. Where's that beer?
Hey, I told you. It's
Yeah, I
Black
know.
Rifle.
Right? Your beer.
Black Rifle. But no, the audio files I sent him, 2 of them, he said were most likely Sasquatch in origin. The other 2 he felt were canine, coyotes. Okay. Right. They were recorded from Pennsylvania though, so of course I let the group know. But you know what? But I would love it if you would tell that, because we're talking about some of the paranormal stuff. You told me a story about being out with your friend and Willow when you saw an orb of some sort. Remember that one?
Yeah. Well, I've got. Did you want the other Bigfoot story about Goshen Pond?
Of course.
Well, why don't I start with that one?
Okay.
Because again, the same thing. I'm actually at Goshen, just behind Goshen Pond Campground. There's a ramp that goes into the river.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been there thousands of times. You know, everybody goes there. You know, people have campfires on that little spit of sand there in front of the fire. In front of the beaver lodge over there. And the trail comes all the way past there. I mean, it's a busy area. So you wouldn't expect anything to occur there. So anyway, one night, again, just gotten dark. I'm sitting there, dogs in the water, having a drink. And, you know, the sun's going down. Well, it's gone down, actually. The light's now going down. The shadows are starting to kind of raise up. And, you know, the dog's having a drink. I'm sitting on that log. There's like a log that cuts across there it's almost like like a retaining wall.
Like a root step.
Tiny retaining wall. And so I'm sitting on there watching the dog. And I hear some, you know, there's a road off into the distance that kind of parallels the Mullica River. Is it Raritan Avenue? I forget the name of it. It goes down to Maple Island. So anyway, so I'm sitting there watching the dog, and I hear this boom chicka boom chicka boom chicka boom chicka coming down the trail, and I'm thinking, oh, here we go. The lads are out tonight with the music. You know, they're probably in a Jeep or a pickup. And anyway, so as I'm hearing this getting closer, you know, I'm watching Willow, and Willow's suddenly up in the air, ears up, hackles up, tail between her legs, comes over to me, and I'm like, and I'm petting her. I'm like, what the heck? I mean, are you afraid of the music? Because I thought it kind of coincided with the truck and the music. Right. And so she comes over to me, and she's kind of leaning on my legs again. And as the truck's getting closer, coming down towards my direction, I hear crashing in the cedar swamp to my right. And it was definitely snapping branches and 2-legged. It was splash, splash, splash. And it came all the way through the cedar swamp to a little cedar grove that's just off the trail in the water. And Willow and I'm listening to this thinking, oh, who the hell's out here at night? Maybe a hunter, you know? Willow's terrified. And whatever this is, I heard it for about 10 to 15 seconds as it went into the cedar grove there, and then it went quiet. And the truck makes its way by. You could tell he was going over those bumps. There's like lots of whoops there. And, you know, the truck was making some noise with the engine as he was going through some of those softer parts. But he goes by, and, you know, the dog's still focused on the cedar swamp. And I'm like, what the hell is that? That's, you know, who the hell's out here at this time of night kind of thing? And it's not hunting season, you know, and then I'm thinking, you know, I've paddled up there. That's actually quite deep water. there's no way I could walk through there and 2-foot it. I'd be swimming.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
it's kind of up to my waist and chest in that section up there, because there's a channel that cuts through. You know, the Mullica River channel cuts through that section, and that's actually quite deep and boggy. You know, a human would have a hell of a hard time walking through that with waders on. Incredibly difficult. But so I heard 2 legs breaking branches, big heavy sploshes. So whatever that was, it was tall. It was able to get through that swamp, and it terrified the dog. And here's the other kicker: I'd parked in that bloody direction. I'd parked down there, and of course the dog's intent on the cedar swamp, and I'm just thinking maybe it's one of the locals having a bit of a laugh. But it was strange. It was very, very quiet, like no sounds after that truck left. And so I went to walk off down the trail towards it, you know, and Willow's kind of hanging around behind me like, I ain't coming down there.
Nope.
So I ended up walking back to her, and we had to walk all the way around up Old Atsign Road, all the way back round to get to where I'd parked again. So she would not go anywhere near that trail and that cedar swamp that's just off the trail. I think you've seen that swamp, Rick. I think we pointed that out.
Oh, for sure. Oh,
yeah. And so whatever it was hunkered down in there because I didn't hear any more noise. And I think that's a bit of dry land in the swamp. And to leave it, you'd have to gone back in the water. And I didn't hear any more splashing.
There's sort of a peninsula that comes out there too.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Where I've been, and I've done some night research with Heather at certain times, and had some return vocalizations as well.
Yep.
From something else, not Heather. I meant the and coyotes too, of course. So we've heard some coyotes. One time, oh man, this was funny. And this was early on when Heather was kind of new to this. I was on that peninsula with her, and there's a couple of little openings by the water. So I stood by one of the openings, and I did a Bigfoot call, right?
Yep.
Right across the creek where the Mullica cuts through there, and there's some, these grasses and things growing up in the swamp. Right from across there, this coyote yelled so loud. I mean, she was like, ah. And then another time when we did a vocalization from the opposite direction towards the campground. Well, not the campground so much as the lake.
Yeah, the lake.
We got a nice vocalization back that wasn't coyote at first, but it became coyotes.
Yeah.
Whatever this was, kicked them into high gear, So it's a
yeah.
spot where we've had some activity. We call the area on the opposite side. If you go down the road past the campground, right towards Woodmansey or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
There's a ghost forest there on the right.
Okay.
Goes down toward, if you make a right there, it goes down towards Echo, and Art and I and other researchers. Nathan's been there before with me. We've had some strange things.
Strange stuff.
There.
Yeah, it was just one of those things, thinking about it. When I looked at the area there and I kind of thought about what it was doing, it sounded to me like it was probably, that big beaver lodge is out there right in front.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I have a sneaky feeling that thing was over by the beaver lodge at some point. Maybe they stick their hand in the top and grab a beaver for lunch or something. I don't know.
Who knows?
Where
does that event take place in regards to the others, though? Was that after the initial one where you heard?
So I had the initial group meeting with our Pennsylvania friends, quite a few years ago. Yeah, like 4 years ago. Then it would have been the Goshen Pond. So that was maybe a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And then the most recent was the Samurai.
Right. Okay. I just wanted to get the correct order of events.
Yeah. Yep.
But that wasn't it. There's one more, folks.
Yeah. Well, it's again, we were out hiking. I was actually with a buddy of mine, Bob Schramm, and we were down at High Crossing. And if you go down towards Carranza Memorial, right after you go after the last bridge, there's a road on the right-hand side that cuts down, a sand road that takes you to the old central line. They call it High Crossing on one of the maps, and it's a nice little wetland area there and a park, and there's a couple of trails that go off in different directions. So we usually park down there off to the side of the road, and there's a little bit of an angle to the road, and we would go out and walk the dogs and come back and sit on the back of the tailgate and have a laugh and a joke, and head our ways after we're done. So anyway, this was probably, I wouldn't say it was later on the year, like in December. And I remember because it was dark early. It was getting dark early, like around, 5:30, around that time. And we'd just come back from a walk with the dogs. And Willow and Max were running up and down the road there and in front of us. And, they were legging up and down. Willow's a fast dog. In those days, she was super quick. She's the only dog I've actually ever watched that can actually level peg a greyhound. So she was super quick running up and down. Max was trying to follow, and Bob and I are sitting. I had a Pathfinder, so we're sitting in the back of the Nissan Pathfinder with the tailgate up, and we're having a cup of tea from a flask, and we're sitting there, as two British guys do. So we're sitting there like watching the dogs in front of us, and we're probably no more than 10 feet from the middle of the sand road. And what do you know? We're sitting there watching the dogs, and Willow's kind of a way down, and Max is somewhat off to the left-hand side of us. This thing, and it was a thing initially, flew past us, and it was so quick. It was like this. It was like a tennis ball. If you're close to a tennis match and somebody serves a ball, it was like that. This thing went straight across in front of us, and I remember looking down, kind of looking around the I guess the D pillar at the back of the tower. I looked around, and this thing had flown by Willow. Willow was giving chase, so she chased after this thing. It was only about 7 feet off the ground. It was in clear view, but I couldn't tell what shape it was when it went by. It was that quick. It was a blur as it flew by, but as you looked, you could tell, because now as I looked around, it was about 100 yards away. And all I'll say, it was about a grapefruit-sized ball, and it was grey, and it wasn't really, it kind of was the colour of the ambient light that we were kind of seeing, just before it gets dark. And Willow gave chase for about 30 yards and then kind of lost it. And this thing, you could see it shot down the road, and you could watch it. It followed the road. It went round the corner and off to the the paved road, and this thing flew by us, and it followed the road. And I remember looking down the road and looking at this thing, thinking, "What the hell is that?" And I looked around, and Bob was looking at me because he's looking, and we both looked at each other and went like, "What the F was that?" And to this day, even if we go down there again, we're like, "I wonder if we're going to see that flying thing."
You know what I like?
But here's the weird thing about that. It gave off no sound. It was definitely circular. But if it had been any darker, you would have never have known it flew by. It made no noise at all. And it was probably, from the speed it was going, I'd probably say it was probably doing about 120 miles an hour, I would say. Because you could only see it for about 4 seconds before it went off around the corner. If you drive down there yourselves, park onto the right-hand side and sit on your tailgate and have a look, you'll see the road, because the railway embankment is to your right-hand side, so you can't see anything. You're kind of behind the railway embankment, but you can see the road down off to your left. This thing was clearly following the road, whatever it was. It gave off no lights, no sound, and it was flying quick. And, I nearly caused an intergalactic incident, I think, if Willow would have actually caught that thing.
I'd like to know, or do some research to see if anybody was driving down that way around that time of year and died. That it's them doing their, it's their energy trapped there doing that.
Yeah.
That would be neat to find out. I wonder if we could find
I first
that
thought,
out.
as it flew by, I thought it was like a nightjar, like one of the night birds, like the nighthawks.
Nighthawks, yeah.
Yeah, because I know they like to swoop, and I always think about the logical things first.
Sure.
But as it went by, and I'm thinking, oh, it's like a bird diving, and then I looked, I could clearly see it was round. It was definitely round, and I'm like, what the hell is that? And it shot off down the road, and like I said, Willow gave chase for about 30 yards, and then she lost it. It was way too quick for her.
Right, and it wouldn't have been gray like that either, and you would have heard that me.
Yeah, exactly.
Me.
And
When it does the dive, the wings go.
Yep. Yeah, they buzz. Yep.
But that
nothing.
was what we mistook for growls many times when Art and I were out there. We thought we were recording out, real nice growls. Turns out it's a nighthawk. Who would have known? But yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, well, that was one of the other mysteries, and to this day we laugh about that. I'm like, what the hell was that thing? Folks say, oh, it was a drone, and I'm like, hold on, there's no way you'd be in the forest at night in the dark, managing to fly a drone that quick down a road in between tall trees. No way.
Yeah.
No, I don't buy it.
Well, and you would have heard it too. Those things are loud, man.
You said it was silent. Yeah.
This was completely silent. It was a gray grapefruit-sized ball.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm going to have to get some details from you and research that.
We were talking about this again, Nathan, last week. I mean, with our conversation about all the woo and the potential for Bigfoot ghosts or, spirits that are lingering on an area, right? That potentially has that ability to. And it's funny, I was watching a show last night on Netflix or Prime, I forget. And it was about a ghost who occupies his home, and these new tenants move in. They buy the house, and the ghost is there, and they put it on social media and everything.
Oh, I saw that. That was that
we have a ghost. It's called We Have a Ghost.
I watched that.
But it just reminded me though. You had another incident at the. I'm pretty sure you did. I could be wrong. By that field that we were going to go to on our cryptid hike that we didn't go to. You mentioned something occurring in that field north of the campground. Am I wrong about that?
Yeah, I've not had any issue. I've not had any things over there.
No, it wasn't you. It was Kathy, I think.
Well, yeah, there was actually a couple of times where she's been out with the dog, and it was probably one of those. Yeah, that was down. That was past the Batona campground, right? Yeah, so down by Carranza Memorial.
I forget. I thought you had said to me it was in that field north of Goshen Pond, actually.
Yeah, well, there's been a couple. There's been a time where she's been down by that meadow at Batona campground, and the dog acted a bit weird, and again got out. And I've walked around there, and she's fine. She marks, coyote scat. So if she finds coyote scat, she marks. She don't care about coyotes.
Yeah. And I crashed my drone at that meadow.
All right. Yep. So there's been a time there where, and you've got the river over on that side too. Mm-hmm. There's been a time there where the dog wasn't playing ball, and I'm not going to walk with you. I'm going to go back to the vehicle. And then there was another time too in the meadow. I call it just the first meadow, which is up Old Atsign Road. Same thing. She parked in the meadow and went to walk the dog, and it was a very still night. And the dog got out, and normally she's fine. We either cut through the woods where we did that cryptid hike and head down, to the river there, or back round to the campground, and then back up the road. And again, the dog was not playing ball. The dog was not having any of it, and it was funny because I remember telling you too, and I don't know whether this was Bigfoot related, but. There was one night I was actually out there walking with the dog, and she got skunked, and I got skunked. Yes. So she likes to use her headlight. She uses it as a weapon. She hunts animals, and she confuses them with the headlight so she can go in for the attack. Unfortunately, it was a skunk.
Sometimes they fight back.
That's it. So she got it right in the mouth. And I remember telling you it because that was one of the lights I was handing out that night. I said, I do apologize. There's one that smells of skunk. That was the headlight the dog was wearing that night a few weeks before. So anyway, the willow got a skunk in the middle of the bloody meadow area there. She hunted it down, and I had to intervene, otherwise it would have been a disaster. And she got blasted in the face, and it got her neck with that light. But while I'm wrangling the dog and the skunk, because I'm trying to get the skunk off, and I got skunked, not as badly as her, but because I'm lucky, I think the skunk gave off most of its blast on her and didn't have much left for me. But while I'm in that meadow, I heard, because I'm kind of like, I'm like all rolled up, getting the dog off, and it's starting to rain, and it's pitch black. I heard a big loud bang, in that woods,
Mhm.
right
That's
to
what it
my
was.
left.
Mm.
And it was a big loud thunk, like somebody knocking. It wasn't a tree cracking. It wasn't a
Mhm.
tree falling. It was definitely a big loud bang. It was like a wood on wood knock, really
Mhm.
loud. And I remember I turned around actually to the location and I yelled at it. I said, "And don't you be starting or something too."
And
You
don't
know?
you mess with me either.
Yeah, you bugger.
I'm
I
pissed, you
got it with the
bugger.
bloody dog and the skunk. I don't need your asshole.
Yeah.
I remember that
But
story.
it
That's
was
what I'm
one
saying.
big
Yeah.
loud knock, and I kind of yelled back at it, because I was annoyed with the dog and the skunk. And
Wow.
and I never heard anything more. But I didn't go on the walk. I got the dog back in the car, had to get her home to get her washed.
Wow.
So, but I never walked through the forest. But the dog, I think the dog was just covered in smell, and she wasn't thinking about what was going on, or she probably never heard it. She was focused too much on the bloody skunk at hand.
Right.
Probably.
But it was definitely one loud bang. It was one big loud wood knock.
Yeah.
And I remember yelling at it, and then because I was annoyed,
I bet.
and then I got in the car and got the dog in and got home and got her out of the hose pipe.
Well, hey, Nathan, I think this is just a good indication that we need to borrow Willow.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Just don't bring her back smelling of skunk.
No
Just
skunk.
don't let her
Yeah.
get skunked. Yeah. Well,
No, I'm
hey,
with you on that.
that's never a good thing. But did you have anything else for Andy you wanted to ask? Because I know it's getting late and you got to get up early, right? So
Yes, sir. 4:30
Yes.
comes early.
it sure does. Not for me.
Yep, it definitely does. I'm
I'm
still at work. Look,
You're still at work.
I'm still
Me
at work.
Me too.
Yeah.
But no, I just really enjoyed hearing about your adventures, Andy, and it's been a lot of fun,
Mhm.
getting out with you, and hopefully we'll
Yep.
do more in the near future. I'm totally game with doing that class that you were mentioning. Okay, and
Yep.
Nathan's brother-in-law Brian also has a vast collection of paranormal ghost researching equipment, right, Nate?
Yeah, he's actually in charge of I think it's called Casper. It's a paranormal research group that he heads
Okay.
up. So
Mhm.
he could help us out with that. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity. I mean, this is probably the most haunted forest in the United States. I think Northern State Forest. And,
Probably
and we
next
have other
close to
creatures hanging
Gettysburg.
around in there too.
Yeah, yeah.
You
That's
never
for
know.
sure.
Like I said, you never know what you're going to find when it
You
comes
really,
out.
and
in the
I don't
Pine
go
Barrens.
looking for these things. I don't go looking for these experiences.
They
So for
find
them to
you.
catch me like that, it's like, what the hell? And then I'm thinking,
Yeah.
oh my God, that's not right. And it gets you second guessing, your normal train of thought,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, I'm really happy that we were able to finally connect with you and get
Yeah,
this all
absolutely, mate.
down, because I know our viewers are going to enjoy the stories. This is
Oh, yeah.
firsthand accounts from the witness's mouth. We've mentioned a couple of things, and I've talked about my experiences with Jacob out there. But real quick, I just want to again thank all our viewers for tuning in. Remember to go support our friends at Yeti Bars, yetibars.net. And be sure to use code STP10 at checkout, right?
Mhm.
And where can they reach us, Nathan?
Squatch Talks Podcast at gmail.com and
Absolutely.
nasbro.net.
Nasbro.net. If you have an encounter you'd like to submit, please do so. Hey, you could be a guest on our show like Andy. So
That's right. That's right.
and Andy's place of business where he's the director is called Pinelands Adventures, right? And that's pinelandsadventures.org. Is that what it is, Andy?
It is a .org. Yep.
A
Very
.org,
good.
right? I'm looking at
Yep.
the nice flyer I got here that they
Yeah,
if
the
you
State of
become
the
a
Pines
member.
report.
Absolutely. And they do a lot of good ecological type stuff. And the members are part of that. So, go become a
We've
member.
got we have a fantastic habitat here, with 1.1 million preserved acres. And if there's anything living around here, it couldn't really have a better habitat to do it, with the
Right.
amount of food, with the amount of resources, with the amount of water, with the
Mhm.
amount of cover, and with the amount of protection.
We
Yeah,
were
for
talking
sure.
with Paul Pedersen a couple of weeks ago. Paul
I did
Pedersen
watch a bit of
Jr.
that podcast.
And I'll tell you, he gave some nice
Yep.
little history and talked about
Yeah.
what was it, John McPhee, right?
Yeah, the McPhee
Next
tour.
week.
Actually, we're doing a McPhee tour coming up. Yep.
There you go. See that?
Yep.
Well, he's trying to get some legislature passed with regards to maybe
renaming it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think
So
that's a
that-
great idea, honestly. And
That's an awesome
Yeah,
you know,
idea. Maybe
McPhee gave a lot of life to this area, and I think it would be
maybe
a
we
great,
can
a
help
great
work
thing
towards
to change
that.
it.
You know,
Well,
Yeah.
maybe, absolutely.
we'll get your
Yeah,
board
I'm
of
gonna-
trustees.
There you go. And, thank you for all the stuff you're doing to help with the ADA compliance and all that stuff. That's great to help more people get out in the woods. You know, that's always
Yeah,
important.
that's it. It's all part of the experience, whether or not
Yeah.
you're looking for ghosts, Bigfoot, or you're just trying to, catch an elusive bobcat.
Right.
That we know they're in the Pine Barrens, but I've only ever seen one, and it was
Mhm.
crossing the road one night when I was coming back from my night
Uh-huh.
shift.
Yeah. I've seen one
You know?
also.
Yeah,
Late at
and so
night,
they're
yeah.
there, but you never see them. They're so secretive.
Mm-mm.
You know, it's amazing what it's amazing what is about, honestly, in the forest.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
really is. But we're very. I was saying to Heather on our way out to the woods on Easter, I said, I'm so glad we were brought up here as opposed
Yeah,
to
for
being
sure.
up in a more rural, or should I say urban setting up in
Urban
northern
area,
New
yep.
Jersey, and how fortunate we are that in 20 minutes we can be out in the woods enjoying all this beauty.
It really is. It is, and that's I looked at Kathy and I were looking at moving out to Utah at one point, and so we went out there for a week. I got offered a job out there, and after a week of kind of driving around and checking places out and realizing how expensive it is, near Salt Lake City and Ogden, Utah,
Right.
we balanced up our way of life, and one of the big factors was even out there. Yeah, okay, you've got the Watchung like National Wilderness area. But the reality is, it was far away. It would have been very busy, and it wouldn't have compared to actually what we have in good old New Jersey here in terms of wildlife habitat. And
Nice.
this is such a big part of what I do every day and my way of life, and that's why I love it. After 19 years of being a learner piney, I think I may have lost my L plates. I think I can say I'm maybe what is it, three or four generations for a proper piney. I'm getting close.
But you've earned your piney pinstripes. I
That's
saw it
right.
on your
Hopefully,
Land
I- you
Rover.
On
your Landy.
I've lost my wing mirrors. They're laying around on the trail somewhere.
We've all done that. Well, again, I just want to thank Andy for being our guest tonight, and we've had a wonderful time hearing all these stories, and we will hope to run into you and Willow on the trail real soon.
Yeah, maybe we will, and let's make a point of getting out again and doing some more hikes and spreading the word.
Absolutely.
There you go. Sounds good, man. Hey, thanks for
All right.
watching.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks, Nathan, and thanks, Eric, for having me on. It's been great.
Yeah, it's fun.
You want to do the rest of the opening stuff before he comes on?
You want to do that? Take care of it. Thank our friends and all our followers.
We'll do the whole opening thing. Hey, everybody, we're
Good idea. Boom.
That's
So
it.
that was awesome, Andy.
Yeah,
Thank you.
cheers. Gents,
That
have a
was
good night.
awesome.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
Hey, you take care. See you later.
See ya.
Thank you. Give our
Cheers.
regards to Kathy. Thank you.
I will do. My dinner is waiting.
Go for it. Cheers, Mike.
Cheers, mate.
My bed's waiting.
His bed's waiting. All right. That was great, Nathan.
Yeah.
Appreciate you hanging in, but it was worth the wait. That's a good way to end the season, I think.
Yeah, that was a good interview. Yeah.
Did you enjoy his tales? I mean, we've heard a couple of them already, right? But
Yeah, I like listening to him talk.
And with the accent and everything, we're going to get a lot of people, I'm sure, watching this and hopefully enjoying it. So as I was saying last week, right, we're going to be ending season 3. Kind of had like a Pine Barrens theme going on there, and Nathan and I are kind of burnt out, so we're going to take a little break in the spring right here, going into the spring, and then we'll come back and hopefully keep things going. I'll try to keep the doors open in the interim too, as best we can. But it's been a lot of fun.
That's
And,
right.
hey, I appreciate everybody hanging in there with us. And we have a few more people watching. So thanks for anybody new who has recently subbed. Hope you'll share us with your friends and family. And Nathan and I really do appreciate your continued support. So
That's right.
all right, Nate.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Have a good night.
You too, man. See you.
Thanks for checking out this episode of Squatch Talks Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, follow, and give us a like, and stay tuned for more exciting stories on Squatch Talks.